Hi, today I am talking about how to shift regret by using the technique of revision. So if there's something that was unfavorable in your past, don't worry about it. You can simply revise it. So stick around. My name is Hedley and I am a qualified life coach. What else am I? Adult educator and an author. And I'm also passionate about changing the stories we tell ourselves, about others, and about the world around us using the teachings of the law of assumption as taught by Neville Goddard. Because it is the stories that create our life. So if you want to create your life, then you really have to change the story that you're telling. And I want to help you do that. I am available for one-on-one coaching and also email coaching if you would like some added support. So you can find the details down in the box below. Okay, let's get into this topic, which is a great topic because it really puts the power back in your hands and reminds you that you are not a victim to your circumstances or any situation, whether it is in your past. It does not matter because we can shift regret with the power of revision. Revision is one of Neville Goddard's techniques that he talks about quite a lot. So I just want to talk a little bit more about that and in particular my interpretation of using revision and how you can apply that as well. So if there is a situation that you have experienced in your reality that you wish you hadn't of, or perhaps you acted in a way that you regret, that you wish you had have done things differently, certainly in the past, before discovering the law of assumption and these teachings, it might have been a case of, oh my God, I wish I hadn't have done that. And then you just get on with life, and that is just the story. It's the story you tell yourself. It's the story you tell others. This is what happened. And you really get caught in a loop of regret, and there's really no way out. But now there is, because we have discovered the wonderful Neville Goddard and the wonderful teachings of the law of assumption. And where we need to start with this is coming back right to the basics of the principles of these laws, which is consciousness is the one and only reality. And all reality first occurs in our consciousness, and therefore anything that we experience in reality is basically our consciousness. So if there is something that we don't like in our reality, we don't go out there to try and fix it or change it. That would be like going up to the mirror and banging on the mirror and being like, hey, I don't like the reflection coming back at me. What we do is we go within to our consciousness, and we start there. So if you have had something, an experience that you didn't like, what can be very helpful is to go back and kind of reverse engineer what was the consciousness, what was the story that you were telling yourself in the lead up to that event, because there was something in your consciousness that led to that event unfolding. And my guess is it wasn't favorable because often it's the old story that comes up and it kind of jumps out at us, or often it just creeps up on us and it just kind of continues over time to wear us down to the point that we then go and act out in ways that we really are not aligned with ourselves, and they're not something, then just it's not authentic to who we really are and who we know ourselves to be. So let's take an example. Let's say an example with your SP, and you've had a situation with your SP, and then you're lying in bed awake at night and you're ruminating on the situation with your SP. First of all, that is never helpful. And really, like, if you're ruminating in that state of going over and over it and sort of getting more and more angry, you can pretty much guess that no action that comes from that place of consciousness that you're in at that point is going to be helpful. So ideally what you want to do is really take a step back and just not take any action from that place, because if you're in that consciousness, you are not going to be helping yourself by taking any action from that place. However, we're human. Oh my God, newsflash. We are human, and shit doesn't always work out as perfectly as that, where we're ruminating on something and we want to send a text, and it's like an angry text, and we want to just blow it up and break up with them, kind of with the hope that they come running back to us and fight for us and all of that drama, which often doesn't happen, because consciousness is the one and only reality. So whatever we're putting out is what we're getting back. So let's say we're in that situation where we are very human and we're ruminating on the conversation or the situation with our SP, and we start drafting that text. It's where we tell them everything that they've done wrong, and what they should be doing, and why we're upset, and then how this relationship isn't working. I'm out of here. Has anyone sent that text? I know I have. And when you're sending it, you shouldn't be sending it, but we sometimes get hijacked by the old story. We're human. Now, in the past, that would have been like a situation where you kind of go, certainly if you regret it in the morning and you wish you hadn't have sent it and you wish you hadn't have broken up with that person, then that can be a really awful place to be in, because you can feel like it's done, there's nothing more that you can do, you've pretty much fucked it up, and you just have to live with it and hope not to do it again the next time. However, thanks to these wonderful teachings and the knowledge that, in fact, reality is just an outpicturing of our consciousness, that we can actually go back and revise a situation in our minds. And we're not necessarily changing the past, but essentially time doesn't exist. There is no time. Everything is happening in the now. All possibilities exist in the now. So if we can create our future with the law of assumption, then we can also recreate our past. And what that does is it adjusts our consciousness so that the situation can kind of rearrange itself into a new way of then getting outpictured in our reality at some point down the track. So I guess the point that I want to make with this is that just because you've done something that you regret does not mean that that is set in stone. You can go back and you can revise using the power of your imagination, which is what these whole amazing teachings are founded on. This is your creative power. You can actually employ that power to go back and revise the situation as to how you would have liked it to play out. So let's take, for example, the example that I was talking about regarding the text message. So you've had a situation with your SP1, you can actually go back and revise that situation. But let's talk about the text message that you might have sent at midnight when you were all reeled up and hijacked by the old story. You can actually close your eyes and play that scene out as it happened in your reality. But what you're doing in your mind, using the power of imagination, is you are recreating that scene. So it might be that you are seeing yourself, you're lying in your bed, you are you in bed, so you're imagining that. You're not witnessing yourself, you're actually involved in the scene. So the scene is playing out, you're in bed, and you can see yourself grab your phone, and you can see yourself typing the message that you're typing. You can kind of remember that thought of going, I really shouldn't send that. And then what you can do is imagine yourself going, actually, I'm not going to send this, and deleting the text. So you delete the text, you click out of your text messages, you put the phone back on the bedside table, and you roll over in bed. And that becomes the new scene. So that text message never got sent. You're simply revising reality in your imagination. But remember, consciousness, the mind, doesn't know the difference between what is real and what is imagined, and what has happened and what hasn't happened, which is why we can create our futures and our realities, because we're simply employing this power to imagine a certain reality that we want to experience. We're living in the wish fulfilled. So if we can do that with our future, we can absolutely do it with our past. You can revise a situation. And what I would suggest that you do is to revise that situation a few times so that it starts to become more real, and that becomes the more dominant memory than the one that actually occurred in your reality. And what you're doing is you're changing your consciousness. You're adjusting yourself into a new consciousness, and that will then impact on how your reality gets outpictured, gets reflected back to you. You don't know how that's going to happen. That is not up for you to figure out how that is going to happen. All you need to do is just work on your consciousness and bringing your consciousness, using the power of your imagination, in alignment with the outcomes that you want to experience, even if those are outcomes that you have already experienced. Isn't that amazing? Now, I know that I have used this technique for myself, and what has happened in the past is that the person will show up just a different version of how they would have showed up. So that it's hard to explain because we don't know what goes on behind the scenes in reality, and so it's really just a case of then sitting back and being curious as to how reality is going to unfold, not understanding how shit happens behind the scenes. That's just not our job. Our job is to not figure out what happens and how it shows up in our reality or when it shows up in our reality. Our only job is to work with our consciousness to create the outcomes we want to experience, whether they are in the past or in the future, knowing that once our consciousness is in alignment with those desired states, reality will reflect them back, and we will experience those in our 3D. When and how, we don't know. So I just wanted to share that with you to give you a little hope that just because you may have done something that you regretted, all is not lost. You may employ the power of revision, using the power of your imagination to recreate anything, because you are the storyteller, you are the writer, director, producer, and the star of your movie, and life is a movie that gets played out on the screen of the 3D, and it all comes from your consciousness. So yeah, if you want to change your life, just change the stories that you're telling yourself. Thank you for listening. If you liked this video, then please feel free to share it with family and friends. If you like this channel, then please feel free to subscribe. I'm just going to keep posting those videos and just, write a story about this because it's fun. So thanks for joining me. I'll see you next time.